All right, so we are on day number 10. Made it 10 days within content. So today we got AKS 20, where we're going to talk about economic systems. Now, there are 3 economic systems that are going to be discussed. This is the notes that are printed out, or actually located rather, on eClass. So you should see these images when you click on the eClass image for AKS 20 notes. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward as usual to show you what they look like inside my notebook. So let me get started. All right, so the very first thing we need to get an understanding of is that all economies have to make choices, right? They have to answer the 3 basic economic questions. No matter what country we're talking about, every country on this planet has to answer these questions. So I'm going to take my black marker here, or pen rather, and we're going to start by listing the 3 basic economic questions. These are the 3 basic economic questions. All right. I'm going to put these in like a little box just because I feel like being extra right now. But hey, nothing wrong with being extra. Y'all know how I do. All right. Matter of fact, I'm going to be ultra extra. I'm going to make it a little decorative for you. Don't y'all try to bite my swag either with y'all basic selves. All right, so let's go ahead and get to this. Just playing with you a little bit of humor today. 3 basic economic questions. So I'm going to take a different marker here, and I am going to tell you what, I'm going to do the purple. 3 basic economic questions. Now, every country on the planet has to ask themselves these questions, and then they ultimately have to answer these questions, right? Number 1 is what to produce. What to produce. What to produce. So basically, what are we going to make? What items are we going to make, right? Number 2, how are we going to make those items? How are we going to that looks kind of funky. How are we going to make those items? And the third and final question that all economies have to answer: For whom are we going to make them for? So basically, what are we going to make? How are we going to make it? And who are we making it for, right? So these are the questions that every economy type has to answer, right? All right, so now that we got the 3 basic economic questions answered and we're ready to go, let's go ahead and get to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to draw a divider, right? So we got the 3 basic economic questions. Now remember, every economy type that we talk about, they have to answer these 3 questions, and they all answer them differently, right? So we're going to first start with a market economy represented by this picture here, right? We got, let me move this up a little bit. We have the coffee shop picture, got a picture of foot locker with shoes, and then we got a picture of somebody swiping their card, purchasing something, presumably a consumer, right? So this is going to represent market economy. So I'm going to write market over here, right? So go ahead and get this down in your notebook. First, we're going to talk about a market economy. I'm going to be a little bit extra just because. Y'all stop hating. Y'all know how I get on my notebook vibes. And I just want to go ahead and make it happen. Show y'all what I can do when I can do it. Alright, so we're going to talk about market economy first. Make me a little bit decorative thing here, a little squiggly. Just because, little market economy. So a market economy. The very first thing we need to know about a market economy is who answers the questions, the three basic economic questions. So we got, what are we going to produce? How are we going to make that? And then who are we going to make it for, right? In a market economy, let's get this down. Up here, individuals. I'm going to write this in all caps. Individuals. And businesses. Individuals and businesses own the resources. They own the resources. So since they own the resources, remember, they're metal, they're natural resources, water, electricity, rocks, diamonds, oil. Individuals own, in a market economy, individuals own the resources. So therefore, the individuals can decide what they're going to make because they own the resources to make the stuff, right? So individuals can start their own business. They can start a coffee shop in a market economy, right? So any individual, if I wanted to quit teaching, I can go out and I can try to start me a coffee shop, right? I can secure the resources and I will physically be able to do that, right? So individuals and businesses own the resources. So therefore, I'm going to get this down. They answer the three questions. They answer the three questions. They being individuals and businesses. They determine what's going to be made, how we're going to make it, and for whom we're going to make it for. So everything is not made for everybody, right? A Lamborghini, a company that makes Lamborghinis, right? They're not making them for everybody. Everybody can't afford them. So therefore they have certain people that they're making it for. So think about this. Businesses can create whatever they want to create, but are they going to do that? That's the question. Now, just because you have the ability to make whatever it is you want to make, if you're a business, you still have to think about what the people want, because people are only going to buy what they want or what they need, right? So therefore businesses, and go ahead and get this down, in a market economy, consumers dictate the products that are made. Consumers dictate the products that are made. So with that being said, I might want to make jeans that are purple with a white pocket with pink buttons. That might be my goal in life. I want to make these jeans and I want to sell them. Just because I love those jeans, that doesn't mean that that's going to translate to consumers wanting to purchase those jeans. So therefore, consumers dictate the products that are made. Now, vocabulary term. I'm going to change colors here. This right here, consumers dictate what gets made. There's a vocab term that means exactly what that stated. So therefore, let's get this down. I'm going to put this in parentheses. This is known as consumer sovereignty. Consumer sovereignty. Consumer sovereignty. Once again, put that in parentheses here. Consumer sovereignty. Consumer sovereignty. Remember, you need to remember that term. That is when consumers dictate what gets made. Remember, businesses are only going to make what they think we want to buy. So consumers have the power to dictate what gets made. Think about with coronavirus. Nowadays, we have when you go to Walmart, almost on every end cap, there's hand sanitizer, there's gloves, there's cleaning products, right? So therefore, consumers need this stuff. This is what we need. So therefore, businesses are going out of their way to produce these items. Businesses that used to produce alcohol, liquor, are now turning their services and their production method towards producing hand sanitizer, right? Because it's something that consumers are wanting and demanding currently right now. All right, so also in a market economy, we have the ability, we individuals, we have the ability to start our own business, and we have the ability to own our own stuff. So let's go ahead and get this down. Individuals in a market, we're talking about a market economy here. Individuals can own their own stuff. When I say that they can own their own stuff, I mean that we can buy something and have it be ours, and we don't have to worry about the government seizing it or taking it from us, right? So individuals can own their own stuff without worrying about government seizures. We're not worried about government taking our stuff, right? So that's specific to a market economy. We have the ability to buy a house. We have the ability to start our own business, and we don't have to worry about the government taking it from us, right? All right, so with that latest line that we have in our notes, individuals can own their own stuff without worrying about government seizures. There's a term that you need to know that's affiliated with this, and this is known as, I'm going to put this in parentheses as well. This is known as private ownership. Private ownership. So in a market economy, we do have private ownership. We have the ability to own our own stuff. Businesses, our own clothing, our own cars, our own homes, everything, without worrying about government taking it from us. So we have private ownership in a market economy. And don't forget, we also have consumer sovereignty. We as consumers, remember, we dictate the products that are made for us in a market economy. Businesses are only going to make what they think we want to buy. All right, so the next thing, let me get another color over here and get situated. All right, so I think I'm going to go back to black. In a market economy, number one thing you need to know is that everybody in a market economy is driven by everyone. I'm going to write this down. You need to be writing it down too. Everyone is driven by what's known as profit motive. Profit motive. Remember, motive is kind of like incentive. Motive is a reason to do something, right? So profit motive, and I'm going to put that in parentheses here. So everyone is driven by a profit motive. What does that mean? Well, that means that we are all acting in our own self-interest, right? So we all want, it's either money, put some dollar signs here, either money or something beneficial. Something beneficial. You all taking these notes right now at 7:30 in the morning, at 10 o'clock in the morning, on a Tuesday of all days. There's a reason you're doing this. You probably don't want to do it. You probably rather be on your phones or watching Netflix or watching a movie, watching something else, doing something else, right? So why are you doing it? What's in it for you? Well, to get a good grade, right? Pass the class, get a good grade, go to college. This helps you with that venture of going to college, right? So you're acting in your own self-interest. So profit motive. Everything we do is for profit, for gain, right? Gaining something. So in a market economy, we have a strong profit motive. Everything we do is for a reason. All right, so we got consumer sovereignty. Yes, we have that in a market economy. Consumers dictate what gets produced. Private ownership. Yes, we have that in a market economy because we can own our own stuff without worrying about government taking it. And we have profit motive. Everything we do is for profit, for a reason. Now, let me get another color here. Let me get this red marker. All right, so the fourth thing we're going to talk about is competition. And put a star next to this one like I'm going to here. Put a little red star. Competition. Competition is the driving force. In a market economy. Competition is the driving force in a market economy. Now, what is competition? We're talking about Coke versus Pepsi, Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts. We're talking about Wendy's versus McDonald's versus Taco Bell versus KFC versus Bojangles versus Pizza Hut versus Papa John's versus any other restaurant you can think of. Whenever we have competition, that benefits consumers. Remember, businesses are trying to get consumers to purchase their items. So why is competition a good thing in a market economy? Well, competition forces businesses to create better products because we as consumers, we're going to buy whatever we think is the best product. Think about that chicken sandwich. Popeyes versus Chick-fil-A. Popeyes, Chick-fil-A. Popeyes, Chick-fil-A. Which one's better? I don't know, but remember there was a big, huge competition last year with that chicken sandwich. Popeye's chicken sandwich was a thing, went viral, right? So competition is something that exists in a market economy. Think about it. McDonald's. I remember 10 years ago going to McDonald's. All of a sudden, McDonald's has free Wi-Fi. So I can get on my internet and grade papers while I drink coffee because they have free Wi-Fi. Now, what does Burger King go do? They get free Wi-Fi because they're in competition with each other. You can't let one company one up you, so therefore you have to stay in competition. Now fast forward a couple of years, so we got Wi-Fi at McDonald's. Next time I go to McDonald's, they got a flat screen TV hanging on the wall, and they got CNN and different cable on. So now I'm able to sit down, get on my computer, grade papers while I watch TV in the lobby at McDonald's. What does Burger King do? They get a TV. They got to keep up with the Joneses, in this case McDonald's, right? They can't let McDonald's outdo them. Now, what is McDonald's going to do? A couple years later, now they get a playground. So I can take the Rugrats with me. I can take the kiddos to McDonald's, let them play while I do work, while I watch TV. Now, McDonald's is stepping their game up. What does Burger King do? Now they have a playground for kids. So once again, it's this tit for tat thing in order to stay afloat. That is what competition does. And in a market economy, they have competition. It's one of the driving forces within this system. All right, so next thing, government regulation. I'm going to use my purple pen here for this final characteristic. So government regulation. Government regulation. Government regulation. In a market economy, there is limited government regulation. Remember, government, there is some regulation, but it's very limited. Matter of fact, I'm going to write that down. Limited government regulation. Now, government regulation, what does that mean? That means government tells us what we can and cannot do, right? If you go to a restaurant, these restaurants have numbers, right? They have ratings. They have 97 rating, 67 rating. By the way, what rating would be too low for you? This is how I decide who's nasty or not. Suppose you go to a restaurant and they have a 76. Do you eat there? I don't know. It depends on how good the place is. I once ate at a wing place that was a 78, but the wings were fire, right? Also, so government regulation. In a market economy, there is limited government regulation. Now, let me show you what government regulates. Write this down. Put a star next to this. In a market economy, it is the government's job to protect. This is what they do. They protect our private property rights. Our private property rights. They protect our private property rights. Meaning that if I buy shoes, you cannot take my shoes from me. I can go to court and I can sue you for that. If I have a house, if I own a home, you can't come into my house, a home invasion, and take my stuff at gunpoint. You can, but once again, that's how our judicial system works. You can go to jail for doing so because the government enforces or protects rather our private property rights. I can't go to a store and decide to steal some stuff. I could, but there's going to be repercussions behind that because our government protects our private property, right? So to recap, a market economy, remember those 5 items that we talked about. Consumer sovereignty, we talked about private ownership, we talked about profit motive, we talked about competition, and we talked about government regulation. Those 5 things, you need to know if they exist or don't exist in a market economy. So let's go back and go through these. Consumer sovereignty, what does that mean? That means consumers dictate what gets produced. Is this visible in a market economy? Yes, definitely. We are the driving force. Businesses are only going to make what they think we want to buy. So yes, consumer sovereignty exists in a market economy. Private ownership, does that exist in a market economy? Yes, definitely. We have the ability to own our own stuff without worrying about government taking it from us. We can start our own businesses. We can buy our own homes, buy our own cars, and we don't have to worry about them snatching it from us. Profit motive, does that exist? Definitely. Everything we do is for a profit. Businesses are trying to make a profit. I'm trying to do good in terms of YouTube videos, right? I'm trying to be a good teacher. I am trying to accumulate more money, more wealth. I want to buy more J's. I want to buy this. I want to do different ventures, right? You want to go to college. You want to go to the military. You want to do well. That's why you're up right now taking notes at 10 o'clock in the morning. So once again, profit motive does exist in a market economy. Competition, does it exist? Yes, definitely so. Think about fast food chains. Think about phone companies, AT&T versus Verizon versus T-Mobile versus all of these different products, right? Coke versus Pepsi, McDonald's versus Burger King, Walmart versus Target. There's competition everywhere. So yes, competition is a part of a market economy. Government regulation, is it visible in a market economy? Kind of. It's very limited, right? What do they do in a market economy? What do they regulate? They protect our private property, right? That's a market economy. All right, so now we are on our way to a command economy. We're finished market. Now we're on a command economy. So let me write that down. Write that up here. Command let's see. Make sure I'm on the right thing here. I am trying to stay afloat, make sure I don't overlook anything. So we got command economies. Command economies. Now, looking at these pictures, any of these individuals look familiar to you? Hopefully you're aware of some of them, right? So we have a command economy. We have, who's this gentleman? That is Mr. Fidel Castro, right? What country did he used to be the head of? Right now, I think his brother is the dictator of this country, but he controlled Cuba for years, since like 1959, 1960, right? They have a socialist regime, dictatorship essentially, right? Who is this gentleman? You probably remember him from the Trump summit, right? So this gentleman controls North Korea. He is the dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, right? So we have a symbol here. We have missiles and tanks, right? Because remember, even though we're talking about a command economy, they still have to answer those three questions. Now, what are those three questions? I'm going to kind of jar our memory a little bit. Let me move this back so I can write and you all can still see what I'm doing here. All right, so it should be good. The three questions I'm going to remind us are: what is produced? How are we going to make that? And for whom are we going to make these things for? Same three questions, right? For whom? So what are we going to make? How are we going to make it? And for whom are we going to make it? We're talking about another type of economy here, command economy. They have to answer those three questions. Now, in a market economy, going back a little bit, in a market economy, remember, individuals and businesses answer those questions. They were the ones that decided what they were going to make, how they were going to make it, and for whom they were going to make it for, right? In this case, I'm going to use my, don't know what color this is, burgundy maybe. I'm going to use this. Very, very important, all caps. Government, I'm going to abbreviate, government controls everything in a command economy. I'll say it again. Government controls everything. And I'm going to put exclamation points here. Everything. And I'm going to underline everything a few times because it's that serious. Government controls everything. Government controls everything. Now, with that being said, government decides what's going to be produced, how it's going to be produced, who's going to get these items. We have no say. If we live in a command economy, we don't dictate anything. Consumers don't. It doesn't matter what we want. Government decides what we get, right? So if you look up here, they decided to make missiles and tanks. They could have made bread, cheese, milk, whatever. They decided to make missiles and tanks. Now, if you look at this picture here, we have a map, right? We have some lights here. This is taken from space, right? This is a portion of the earth. What do you think this is down here? All this looks like water, right? This part's water right here, but this part right here, this is actually North Korea, right? This is actually what North Korea looks like at night. What do you notice? There's no lights. Hardly anybody has electricity. Why not? Because the government decides what's going to be produced, what we're going to have, what we're not going to have. So very, very, very important here. Government controls everything. Now, what were those 5 items that we talked about earlier? Remember, let's label these. Private ownership was one of the characteristics. Private ownership. Remember, we talked about this before in a market economy. Private ownership means consumers and people, individuals, have the right to own stuff and they can start their own businesses, right? Do they have this right in a command economy? No. Why not? Because the government decides who owns what you get to keep if you start a business, if you don't start a business. So private ownership does not, I'm going to put this in all caps, does not exist. Does not exist in a command economy. Does not exist. So private ownership does not exist. Government doesn't care what you want, right? Private ownership, you don't get the ability, you don't own the resources. The government owns everything. Remember, government controls everything, all the resources. So they decide what you get to have, right? Now, the next item that we are going to talk about is profit motive. And I'm going to use a different color for this one. Profit motive. Remember, profit motive is the reason that we do things, right? Is there a profit motive in a command economy? No. People don't have any reason to want to do better because the government owns everything. They control everything. They control businesses. They control where you live. They control what job you have. So therefore, if I am going to be, suppose I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a lawyer. I live in a command economy. There's no reason for me to want to be a lawyer because I can't make the amount of money that I want to. They might pay me the same thing as somebody who picks up the trash makes, right? So there's nothing in it for me. It's kind of like this. Those of you who work, say you're making $10 an hour, right? If I have a job for you, you can cut my grass every week and I'll pay you $40 an hour. Would you do it? Probably so. Because $40 an hour, I'm willing to bet most of you probably don't make $40 an hour. So $40 an hour, that's profit motive. You see an opportunity to make more money, so you're going to jump on it because you live in a primarily market economy setup, right? In a command economy, there is no profit motive because government owns everything. There's no reason to want to do better, right? Why should I go to college? Why should I go study when I'm going to be in the same predicament because government controls everything that we do, right? So profit motive does not exist. I'm going to underline this as well. Does not exist in a command economy. Does not exist. Now the next thing, I'm going to change colors. Competition. This was the other concept we talked about. Does competition exist in a command economy? No, because people can't own their own business, right? Government owns everything. So there's no competition because government dictates who owns what. So you don't have people that own businesses that can compete with other people that own businesses because, once again, government owns everything. So competition does not exist in a command economy because government owns everything. They control everything. All right. Now, the next item, think about this one. Changing colors once again. Consumer sovereignty. Let's write this down. Consumer sovereignty. Does consumer sovereignty, and the word sovereignty means to govern oneself, right? To govern oneself. I don't know if you all recall, but in U.S. history, there was a phrase known as popular sovereignty. Remember, this was really controversial in U.S. history because this dealt with slavery. Remember, the federal government did not want to rule one way or the other whether the new territories were going to have slaves, whether they were going to be a slave state or a free state. So they left it up to the people of that area to decide whether it was going to be a slave state or free state. This was known as popular sovereignty because the government didn't want anything to do with that decision, right? They were soft on it. They kind of passed the buck. They didn't want to deal with it. So think about sovereignty as ruling oneself, right? Deciding how we're going to govern ourselves. So consumer sovereignty means we as consumers, we decide the products that are going to be made, right? So with that being said, in a command economy, do consumers dictate what gets made? No. Who does? The government. So you're exactly right. Consumer sovereignty does not exist because the government decides what gets produced. Look up here. They don't even have electricity up here. So the government decides what's produced. I'm going to underline this. Consumer sovereignty does not exist in a command economy. The government doesn't care what their citizens want. They get what we make, right? Good. All right, one more. So the last thing. Now think about this one. I'm going to change colors. Government regulation. Does government regulation exist in a command economy? Definitely so. A lot of it. Remember, government controls everything. In a market economy, remember, there was a little bit of government regulation. Remember, in a market economy, all the government did was protect our private property rights. In a command economy, there is heavy government regulation. Super heavy. Government controls everything. Matter of fact, I'm going to write that here. Draw an arrow down here. And I'm going to write government abbreviate here. Government controls everything. 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 Y'all are probably like, Mr. DeWitt, you doing too much. I ain't doing too much. You doing too little. Step your game up. Everything. All right, so to recap, private ownership, no, does not exist in the command economy. We can't own whatever we want because the government decides what we can own and what we don't own, right? We can't start our own business unless government allows us to start a business because government controls everything. Profit motive. I'm going to put a star next to profit motive. You might ask, why are you putting a star next to profit motive? Because profit motive, I'm going to write that over here. Profit motive, or actually the lack of profit motive, the lack of profit motive, the lack of profit motive is why command economies fail. This is the reason they don't work. Command economies fail because of profit motive. There is no profit motive. I'm gonna write fail right here. This is why they fail. This is why command economies fail. Think about it. There's no reason for the citizens to want to do better. Why should I do better when I'm going to be in the same position as I was before? Because government controls everything. I can't even own my own business. I can't decide what I want to do in terms of work. Government provides the jobs for citizens, right? So therefore, why should I want to do anything or come up with the next best thing to cure cancer or come up with this new technology? I'm not going to benefit from it. I'm not going to make money from it because the government controls everything. They make the money from it. So there's nothing in it for me, right? It's the equivalent of being on a basketball team. Hey, coach, can I be on the basketball team? Yes, but you'll never play. I already have my starting five. You'll never see the court. There's no real reason for you to want to be on a team if you're never ever going to play in the first place, right? So therefore, there's nothing in it for you. There's no incentive for you. So that's the same thing that happens in command economies with their citizens. There's no reason for them to want to do better. All right, so competition does not exist in a command economy because businesses, you can't control your own business. You can't own your own business. Government owns everything. Consumer sovereignty does not exist. The government doesn't care what you want. The products you want made, who cares? We're going to make missiles, guns, bread, and toast, right? I don't care that you want Nikes. I don't care that you want Birkin bags. You're not going to have that here. You're going to have belts, regular jeans with no brand name on them, and you're going to wear boots, right? Because that's what you're going to have. Well, but I don't want that. And why don't people complain in command economies? Because people that complain or go against government sometimes come up missing, and you can guess what happens, right? So fear is a big time factor in a command economy. Now, the one thing that they have a lot of in these 5 different categories is government regulation. They have a whole lot of that because the government controls everything. All right, so I hope this video really helped you with command economies as well as market economies. We're halfway done, but for today we are going to cut it in half, end it here, and pick it up tomorrow. We're going to discuss traditional economies as well as mixed economies. Until next time, peace.